Meet Tom, a man caught in the web of life's monotonous routine, yearning for an escape from his joyless marriage. Enter Vincent, a mysterious figure whose magnetic allure leads Tom into a whirlwind of dangerous indulgences. Vincent, a figure not of this world, a demon unleashed by an innocent child's desperate wish to end his parents' ceaseless quarrels. As the web of deception unravels, a chilling revelation emerges. Every sordid step, every heartbreak, orchestrated by a malevolent force. A tragic twist of fate leaves a family shattered, a child orphaned, and a haunting lesson on the perils of desire. Join us, if you dare, for a journey into the darkest corners of the human heart, where wishes turn to nightmares and demons walk among us. The air in the Johnson household was thick with tension, an all too familiar scene for young Danny. He sat at the top of the stairs, knees drawn up to his chest, listening to the sharp exchange of words between his parents in the living room below. The voices of Tom and Sarah Johnson, once harmonious, now clashed like discordant notes in a failed symphony. "You never listened to me, Tom." Sarah's voice rose above the cacophony of their argument, her words laced with frustration. "I'm tired of this, Sarah. It's always the same thing," Tom shot back, his voice heavy with weariness and resentment. Danny closed his eyes, wishing he could block out the sound, wishing for a peace that seemed so distant. He heard the front door slam shut, signaling his father's departure. Tom needed an escape, and tonight, like many nights before, it would be the local bar. Tom sat at the dimly lit bar, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts, each one a bitter reminder of his failing marriage. The bartender slid a glass of whiskey toward him, a temporary solace for his inner turmoil. He hadn't noticed the man sitting next to him until he spoke. "Tough night?" the stranger asked, his voice smooth and oddly comforting. Tom glanced over, meeting the gaze of a man with an enigmatic smile and piercing eyes. "You could say that," Tom replied, taking a sip of his whiskey. "I'm Vincent," the man introduced himself, extending a hand. "Tom," he replied, shaking Vincent's hand, feeling a strange sense of intrigue. Vincent had an air of confidence and mystery about him. He listened intently as Tom vented about his marriage, nodding sympathetically. "Sometimes we need to step out of our lives to see what we're missing," Vincent said, his words hanging in the air like a tempting promise. As the night progressed, they shared more drinks, and Vincent's charismatic presence made Tom feel a sense of excitement he hadn't experienced in years. They laughed, shared stories, and for a few hours, Tom forgot about the troubles waiting for him at home. "Life's too short to be unhappy, Tom," Vincent said, raising his glass in a toast. "Here's to finding what makes us truly happy." Tom echoed the sentiment, clinking his glass against Vincent's. For the first time in a long time, he felt alive, invigorated by this newfound friendship. Little did he know, the mask of friendship Vincent wore concealed a much darker reality, one that would change the course of Tom's life forever. The morning light did little to brighten the mood in the Johnson residence. Tom, nursing a hangover, found himself in the midst of yet another quarrel with Sarah. Her words were sharp, a relentless torrent of frustration and disappointment. "You're never here when we need you, Tom. The bills are piling up, and all you care about is running off to that pub." Sarah's voice pierced the heavy air, her anger evident. Tom, feeling cornered and misunderstood, retaliated with his own pent-up grievances. The argument spiraled, reaching a fever pitch until, in a fit of rage, Tom grabbed his coat and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Driving to work, his mind replayed the morning's events, the echoes of the argument reverberating in his head. It was then that he saw a familiar figure walking along the sidewalk. Vincent, with that same enigmatic smile, waved at him. Pulling over, Tom rolled down the window. "Vincent, Fancy seeing you here." Vincent approached the car, his charismatic aura enveloping Tom like a warm blanket. "Off to work, Tom?" he asked casually. "Yeah," Tom replied, though his tone lacked conviction. Vincent leaned in, his voice a seductive whisper. "You know, there's a place I know, far more exciting than any office. Why not take a day for yourself, Tom? You deserve it." The idea was tempting, dangerously so. Before he knew it, Tom found himself nodding in agreement, the lure of escapism too strong to resist. Vincent led Tom to an exclusive club, a place pulsating with energy and allure. Inside, Tom felt like a different person. He was no longer the beleaguered husband and father. Here, he was someone desirable, sought after. Women flocked around him, their attention intoxicating. As the hours slipped by, Tom reveled in this newfound admiration. Vincent was always there, a whisper in his ear, guiding him, manipulating him with carefully chosen words. "See what you've been missing, Tom? This is where you belong, among those who appreciate you." Tom stayed the entire day, losing track of time in a haze of pleasure and fulfillment. It was only as the sun began to set that he realized he needed to head home. As he left the club, Vincent's parting words lingered in his mind. "Remember, Tom, you only live once. Make it count." Driving home, Tom felt a mixture of exhilaration and guilt. He had abandoned his responsibilities, lost himself in a world so different from his own. Yet, the experience had awakened something within him, a desire for more, a desire that Vincent had skillfully ignited. Unbeknownst to Tom, he had stepped further into Vincent's web, a path that would lead him away from the life he knew, towards a fate he could never have imagined. Tom pulled into the driveway, the remnants of the day's escapade still swirling in his head. The house was dark, save for a small light in the living room. Stepping inside, he was met with an eerie silence, a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos of the club. "Danny," Tom called out, his voice echoing through the empty space. Moments later, his son appeared at the top of the stairs, his eyes wide with the innocence that Tom felt slipping away from himself. "Dad, you're home?" Danny's voice was a mix of relief and worry. "Where's Mom?" Tom shrugged, a pang of guilt washing over him. "I don't know, buddy. She wasn't here when I left. Has she been gone long?" Danny nodded. "She's been going out a lot these past few days, leaving me alone." The revelation stung Tom. He had been so caught up in his own escape that he hadn't noticed the growing rift in his family. Before he could process the situation further, the front door creaked open, and Sarah stumbled in, her eyes avoiding Tom's questioning gaze. The tension in the air was palpable as Tom confronted her. "Where have you been, Sarah?" Sarah's response was hesitant, her voice laced with a mixture of defiance and resignation. "I've been seeing someone, Tom. Someone who makes me feel alive again." The words hit Tom like a physical blow, igniting a fiery argument that seemed to consume the house. Accusations flew, bitter truths surfaced, and the foundation of their marriage cracked under the weight of their pent-up frustrations. Upstairs, Danny cowered in his room, the sounds of his parents' argument piercing through the walls. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered to himself, "Make it stop. Please, make it stop." He reached under his bed, pulling out an old, worn book, the source of a ritual he had performed weeks ago in a desperate plea to end his parents' constant fighting. "I asked for it to stop. Why isn't it working?" He sobbed, his young mind unable to comprehend the dark forces he had unwittingly unleashed. As the argument downstairs reached its climax, with Sarah and Tom's voices melding into a cacophony of anger and pain, Danny clutched the book to his chest. The ritual, meant to bring peace, had instead spiraled into a nightmare, one that was tearing his family apart. Unseen by the distraught family, A shadow lingered outside Danny's door, its presence a chilling reminder of the unintended consequences of a child's innocent wish. The day had barely started when Tom, driven by a gnawing suspicion, decided to leave work early. He couldn't shake the image of Sarah's confession from his mind, her words echoing hauntingly, the need to uncover the truth, to see the face of the man who had infiltrated his life, was overwhelming. Parking his car a few houses down, Tom settled in for a long wait. Hours dragged by, each minute amplifying his anxiety and suspicion, and then there he was, Vincent, emerging from Tom's own home. The sight was like a gut punch, leaving Tom reeling in shock and betrayal. As Vincent got into his car, he locked eyes with Tom. A knowing, almost mocking wink sent his way before he drove off. The gesture fueled a fire within Tom, a mixture of fury and heartbreak burning in his chest. All the arguments, the accusations, the turmoil he had been feeling. It was Sarah who had been unfaithful, with Vincent of all people. Tom's rage swelled to an unprecedented level, a dark, unfamiliar force within him, driving his anger to depths he had never experienced. It felt as if something else, something sinister, was amplifying his emotions, guiding him towards a path of destruction. He stormed into his house, the door slamming shut behind him. The world outside faded away as Tom was consumed by his wrath, a dangerous and uncontrolled force. A few hours later, the piercing sound of sirens shattered the suburban calm. Police cars pulled up to the Johnson residence, responding to complaints from neighbors about the noise. The officers approached cautiously, not knowing what awaited them inside. As they entered, a chilling scene unfolded before their eyes. In the living room, Tom sat on the floor, his body shaking with sobs, his hands covered in blood. Before him lay Sarah, lifeless, her eyes staring vacantly at the ceiling. It was clear she had been strangled, her neck bearing the brutal marks of Tom's uncontrollable fury. The officers quickly apprehended Tom, his cries echoing through the house as he was led away in handcuffs. He kept muttering, "I didn't mean to. It wasn't me." His words were a mix of remorse and confusion, the realization of his actions crashing down on him like a wave of despair. Unseen in the chaos, a shadow lingered in the corner of the room, its presence sinister and triumphant. The demon, Vincent, had manipulated events to this tragic climax, feeding off the discord and steering Tom towards this irreversible act. The innocent wish of a child had been twisted into a nightmare, leaving a family destroyed and a child orphaned, the horrific consequences of a ritual gone horribly wrong. Danny Johnson trudged home from school, his mind a whirlpool of confusion and sorrow. His once ordinary life had been shattered in a matter of days. As he approached his house, he noticed a car he didn't recognize and a group of people waiting on his doorstep. His heart sank. He instinctively knew they were from social services. Daniel Johnson, one of the social workers, approached him gently. "We need to talk to you. It's about your parents." Before they could explain further, a sleek car pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and out stepped Vincent, the man Danny had seen with his father but knew little about. "I'm here for Danny," Vincent announced confidently, striding towards the group. "I'm his godfather and uncle. Here's my paperwork." He handed over a set of documents to the surprised social workers. "We were under the impression that Danny had no other relatives," one of the social workers said, examining the papers. "Family can be distant until they're needed," Vincent replied smoothly. "Right now, Danny needs love and family, not bureaucracy." The social workers, after a brief consultation and verification of the documents, reluctantly agreed. Danny, still in shock, packed a small bag with his belongings, his movements robotic, his mind numb. As Danny got into Vincent's car, Vincent turned to him with a sly smile. "Sorry it took a little longer than you wanted, pal. But these things take time. I always answer my children's wishes." Danny looked up at Vincent, a mix of confusion and fear in his eyes. He remembered the ritual from the old book, the wish he had made to stop his parents fighting. It was meant to bring peace, not this, not the loss of everything he held dear. As the car drove off, leaving the only home Danny had ever known behind, he sat in silence, trying to process the enormity of what had happened. Vincent, the man he thought was a friend of his father's, was now his guardian, a guardian whose true nature was shrouded in darkness and mystery. The story of the Johnson family ended on that solemn note, a tale of wishes gone awry, of demonic manipulations, and of a child's innocent desire for peace, leading to unimaginable consequences. As they disappeared into the fading light, Danny's future remained uncertain, in the hands of a being whose intentions were as enigmatic as his sudden appearance in their lives. Ah, my dear nocturnal scholars of the macabre, it's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. Now shall we delve deeper into the abyss? Let's embrace the darkness once more. Let's get back to the shadows. In today's Tales from the Shadows, a couple on a weekend retreat find themselves lost in the countryside and have a devil of a time finding their way back. Do enjoy. Amidst the tranquil countryside of Norfolk, under a canopy of stars, Michael and Sarah's car glided along the serpentine roads, the couple escaping the city's bustle for a weekend retreat, their laughter mingling with the soft hum of the engine. The dashboard clock read 11:30 p.m., and the world outside was a collage of shadowy fields and distant woodlands, illuminated only by the car's headlights. Michael glanced at the GPS, noticing with a frown that the signal flickered and then vanished entirely. "That's odd," he muttered, tapping on the screen. Sarah leaned over, her brow furrowing. "Maybe it's a glitch. We can't be too far from the B&B." But the comforting certainty of the modern world had slipped away, leaving them adrift on an unlit country road. The GPS remained obstinately blank, a silent rebuke to their reliance on technology. They continued, the car's headlight carving a path through the darkness. The road, less maintained and more narrow, wove through an increasingly dense forest. Twisted branches arched over the road like bony fingers, and the air grew heavy, as if charged with unseen energy. "Should we turn back?" Sarah's voice was tinged with unease. Just then, as if in response, a shape emerged from the gloom. A vast, ancient house, its silhouette stark against the forest backdrop. It stood like a sentinel, windows dark, and an air of long-forgotten grandeur about its ivy-clad walls. Michael, driven by a mix of curiosity and desperation, pulled the car to a stop. "Let's take directions. There has to be someone in there." They approached the house, the gravel crunching under their feet. The door, a massive oak affair with iron fittings, loomed before them. Sarah hesitated, but Michael, with a reassuring squeeze of her hand, knocked firmly. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway and a figure clad in antiquated garments, their face obscured by shadows. "Lost travellers?" The voice was oddly melodious, echoing slightly in the vast entryway. "You are expected." Michael and Sarah exchanged a bewildered glance. The house, with its air of bygone eras and the oddly dressed figure, felt like a step into another world, a world where GPS signals and city life seemed like a distant memory. As they crossed the threshold, a chill ran down Sarah's spine. Unseen eyes seemed to watch them, and the house's secret lay shrouded in the heavy silence. Little did they know their arrival at the forgotten abode was just the beginning of a journey into the unknown, a journey that would challenge their understanding of reality itself. As Michael and Sarah stepped in the grand foyer, they were enveloped by an atmosphere thick with the scent of old wood and a faint, indefinable spice. The house, a relic of a bygone era, whispered of secrets and stories untold. Their host, whose antiquated attire seemed straight out of a historical drama, he closed the door with resonant thud, sealing them away from the outside world. "Please come in. We rarely receive guests these days," the host said, leading them through the dimly lit hallway. His companion, equally strangely dressed, emerged from the shadows, her gaze fixed on the couple with an intensity that bordered on unsettling. Sarah clung to Michael's arm, her eyes darting around the hall. The walls were adorned with tapestries and paintings that were fascinating, yet disconcerting. Scenes of celestial bodies in unnatural alignments, figures in fervent worship around ominous symbols, and landscapes that seemed not of this world. They were ushered into a sitting room where time appeared to have stood still. Antique furnishings, heavy drapes, and a crackling fireplace gave the room a strangely comforting yet eerie ambience. The couple sat on a plush sofa while their hosts occupied armchairs across from them, the flickering firelight casting dancing shadows upon their ageless faces. "Let us warm you with some tea," the female host offered, her voice a haunting melody. She poured a steaming, aromatic brew into the delicate porcelain cups and handed them to the couple. Michael and Sarah thanked them, sipping cautiously. The tea was unlike anything they had tasted before, rich and somehow invigorating. As they drank, they couldn't help but notice the unwavering stare of their hosts, dark, penetrating eyes which seemed to probe into their very souls. "Our family have lived here for generations," the male host began, his voice low and hypnotic. "We are guardians of traditions, long forgotten by the modern world." Sarah, attempting to ease the tension, asked about the unusual decor. "Your home is quite unique. These symbols on the walls, are they part of your tradition?" The female host smiled, a cryptic expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yes, they're the symbols of our devotion, our connection to the ancient powers of this land. You see, we follow the old ways, the ways of a deity long forsaken by others." Michael exchanged a glance with Sarah, a silent communication of mutual disbelief and growing apprehension. The conversation drifted to vague tales of the house's history, but their hosts deftly evaded any specific details about themselves or their practices. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, a sense of unease settled over the couple. The house, with its eerie artifacts, and the inscrutable gaze of their hosts, seemed to hold a mystery far beyond the ordinary. Michael and Sarah were unaware that they were already entwined in the web of ancient rituals and prophecies, with the night's shadow harbouring truths far stranger than any they had ever known. In the flickering light of the sitting room, the hosts introduced themselves, with an air of solemnity. "I am Lucius," the male host declared, his voice echoing slightly in the still room, "and this is my sister Lilith." He gestured towards his companion, whose smile was as enigmatic as her gaze. "We are the devoted followers of Baphomet," Lucius continued, his eyes glinting with a fever that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. "The great deity of the hidden knowledge and the guardian of the lost." The name Baphomet hung in the air, unfamiliar, yet heavy with ominous undertones. Michael shifted uncomfortably, his skepticism battling with the unsettling atmosphere of the house. Feeling a growing unease, Sarah excused herself. "Could I use your bathroom?" "Of course," Lilith replied, pointing down the hall. "It's the third door on the left." Sarah stood up and walked down the dimly lit hallway, the wooden floorboards creaking underfoot. The shadows seemed to shift around her, and an eerie feeling crept over her. She counted the doors, but distracted by her growing apprehension, she mistakenly opened the fourth door. What lay before her was a room resembling a perverse chapel. In the centre stood an altar, but everything was arranged in a disturbingly inverted manner. The cross was upside down, and the walls were adorned with paintings that depicted not saints or divine figures, but scenes of devilish creatures in various poses of power and dominance. As she stepped inside, intrigued yet terrified, the door closed behind her with a soft click. The room seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy, the air thickening as if charged with an unseen presence. The eyes in the paintings seemed to follow her every move, their gazes piercing and alive. From a shadowy corner of the room, a figure began to emerge. Its form was indistinct, but Sarah could discern the unmistakable outline of horns atop its head. A primal fear gripped her heart as she felt an overwhelming urge to flee. Just then, Michael's voice pierced the thick air. "Sarah?" He opened the door, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. Sarah ran to him, clutching his arm. "We have to get out of here. Michael, something is terribly wrong in this place." They turned to leave the twisted chapel, but in the doorway stood Lucius and Lilith, their expressions impassive, yet their smiles held a chilling edge of satisfaction. "Leaving so soon?" Lucius's voice was smooth, almost mocking. "You've only just begun to understand the truth of Baphomet's realm." Michael and Sarah stood frozen, realizing the depths of the nightmare they had unwittingly stepped into. The house, with its dark secrets and enigmatic hosts, were more than just an ancient abode lost in the Norfolk countryside. It was a gateway to a realm beyond their wildest fears, a realm where the boundaries of reality and nightmare blurred into a terrifying new world. "Michael, we're leaving," Sarah said, her voice trembling but resolute. Lucius, with an unnerving smile, replied, "If you can find the exit, you are free to leave this place." Determined to escape, Michael and Sarah began to retrace their steps through the dimly lit corridors. But the house, as if alive and mocking their efforts, had transformed. Corridors twisted in unfamiliar ways, doors led to different rooms, and the front door was nowhere to be found. It was as if the house itself was reshaping, keeping them ensnared within the walls. Confused and increasingly panicked, Michael poured open a door, only to find themselves back in the eerie chapel. But this time, the chapel appeared older, the walls more decayed, the air heavier with the scent of ancient incense. They turned to leave, and there in the doorway stood Lucius and Lilith, their dark eyes following the couple's every move, yet not uttering a single word. Sarah, grasping at any hope, chose another door. "This one," she said. But it led to the chapel again, even more ancient and foreboding. The paintings on the walls seemed to age right before their eyes, the figures within them contorting into more sinister forms. "What is happening?" Michael's voice was a mix of fear and frustration. "It's like a weird labyrinth." As they hurried through the shifting hallways, Michael noticed a room marked by 2 enormous doors, grander than any they had seen before. "That one," he said, pointing. As he reached for the door handles, Lucius's voice echoed from behind them. "I wouldn't go in there if I were you." Ignoring the warning, Michael pushed the doors open and stepped inside, Sarah close behind him. The room they entered was vast, a stark contrast to the claustrophobic corridors and the changing chapel. It was a grand hall, its walls lined with towering bookshelves filled with ancient tomes and artifacts. In the centre, a large circular table was covered with maps, scrolls, and strange instruments. The air in the hall was thick with an energy that was almost tangible, and the couple felt a profound sense of being at the heart of the house's mysteries. It was as if the room held the key to understanding the labyrinth, and perhaps the way to their escape. But as they looked around, they realized they were not alone. Shadows moved between the shelves, and whispers filled the air, hinting at the presence of unseen watchers. The sensation of being observed, analyzed, and perhaps even manipulated was overwhelming. Sarah clutched Michael's hand. "What is this place?" Michael, his eyes scanning the room, replied, "I don't know, but it feels like the center of everything here. Maybe the answer to getting out is here somewhere." As they tentatively explored the hall, the sense of an impending revelation grew, but the question remained. Would this room lead them to freedom, or further into the clutches of the house's arcane and sinister secrets? In the grand hall, Michael's eyes fixed upon a window, a glimmer of hope in their entrapment. "There!" he exclaimed. "A window means a way out." They rushed to the window, hearts pounding with the prospect of escape. But as they peered through the glass, their hopes were dashed. Instead of the familiar Norfolk countryside, a vast, infernal landscape stretched before them. A red sky bled over a horizon consumed by fire, a hellish vista that defied reality. "I don't understand," Sarah whispered, her voice a mix of fear and disbelief. Turning to further investigate the room, they found themselves not in the hall, but back in the chapel. Now more decayed than ever, paintings were peeling off the walls, and cobwebs draped over every surface like shrouds. Then, from the shadows, a voice, dark and powerful, resonated through the decaying chapel. "Welcome, my children." A figure began to emerge, commanding and terrifying. First the horns, curved and menacing, then the head of a goat, eyes burning with an otherworldly intelligence. The body was humanoid, powerful and imposing, with wings that brushed the ceiling and legs like that of a goat. "I am Baphomet," the figure declared, its voice echoing off the ancient walls. Sarah and Michael stood frozen, their minds struggling to comprehend the being before them. "Do not despair," Baphomet continued. "As my followers, You have nothing to fear. You need only know that you are now and forever my servants. The reality of their situation dawned on them with crushing weight. The house, the labyrinth, Lucius and Lilith, the chapel, all were part of a grand, sinister design orchestrated by this ancient deity. Michael, mustering his courage, spoke. "We are not your followers. We just wanted a weekend away. We don't belong here." Baphomet's laughter, deep and resonant, filled the room. "You may not have chosen this path, but it has chosen you. Your arrival was not by chance. It was destiny." Sarah, tears brimming in her eyes, clutched Michael's hand. The escape they sought seemed more unattainable than ever. Trapped in this nightmarish reality, they faced a future bound to the will of a deity as ancient as it was malevolent. As Baphomet's presence loomed over them, the couple realized that their journey into the heart of darkness was only just beginning. Whether they would find a way back to the world or be forever ensnared in Baphomet's grasp was a question that filled them with dread. The only certainty was that their lives had been altered by their descent into the abyss. Michael's voice pierced the heavy air. "Run!" In a burst of adrenaline, they fled through the chapel doors and into the twisting hallways. As they raced through the labyrinth, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and desperation, they stumbled into a grand dining room. There, as if awaiting their return, were Lilith and Lucius. A grand table, set with an array of tea and an elaborate spread of food, stood before them. 2 empty chairs seemed to beckon them. "Come, sit. It's all too much for you. Let me explain," Lucius said, his voice soft yet laced with an undeniable authority. "There really is nowhere else for you to go," Lilith added, a hint of resignation in her tone. Reluctantly, Michael and Sarah took their seats, the surreal nature of their situation leaving them feeling drained and disorientated. Lilith handed them a newspaper, the front page emblazoned with a shocking headline: "Couple die in car crash on Norfolk roads." Below was a picture of their car, unmistakably smashed and mangled. "It's okay, my dear," Lilith reassured Sarah, whose eyes were wide with disbelief. "We are not your enemies, but your guides." "Let us help you," Lucius chimed in. "Baphomet is a kind and generous master. He takes care of his children." The couple exchanged a look of confusion and panic. Sarah's voice trembled. "What are we going to do?" Michael, his resolve hardening, replied, "We are getting out of this nightmare. I'm not buying this for 1 second. It's a trick." Despite the newspaper's chilling proclamation, Michael refused to accept their fate as dictated by the strange, dark world they had been thrust into. The surreal experience, the cryptic words of their hosts, and the haunting visage of Baphomet all seemed like pieces of a macabre puzzle that was too sinister to be real. "Listen," Michael said to Sarah, his voice low and urgent. "We can't let fear paralyze us. We have to keep looking for a way out, no matter what they say or what illusions they throw at us." Sarah nodded, her resolve bolstered by Michael's determination. They stood up, pushing the chairs away, ready to face whatever twisted reality lay ahead. Lilith and Lucius watched them, their expressions unreadable. The air in the room thickened with anticipation and unspoken secrets. The couple knew their journey through this nightmarish realm was far from over. Every step, every decision brought them closer to confronting the truth of their situation, and perhaps to finding a way back to their own world. Michael's voice was firm, laced with a mixture of anger and defiance. "I don't know what game you're trying to play, but we're not falling for it." Lucius and Lilith merely watched them, their faces devoid of emotion. With determination, Michael grasped Sarah's arm, and they marched down the hallway. "There has to be a way out. This has to be a trick," he insisted, his eyes scanning for any sign of escape. Sarah, her face etched with fear and anxiety, followed closely. The surreal nature of their situation was overwhelming, but Michael's resolve gave her a flicker of hope. Suddenly, Michael's attention was drawn to a door they hadn't noticed before. "The basement," he murmured, a hint of hope in his voice. They descended the stairs, their footsteps echoing a dark, damp space. As their eyes adjusted to the dim light, they realized the room was empty, save for a faint glimmer. "Look there!" Sarah exclaimed, pointing to a crack in the wall where a sliver of light seeped through. Michael, fueled with a surge of hope, threw his shoulder against the crack, widening it enough for them to squeeze through. "I knew it," Michael breathed, a sense of triumph in his voice. "Let's get out of here." They clambered through the cracked wall, emerging into an open expanse, but their relief was short-lived. They stood in a desolate landscape under a red sky, surrounded by fire as far as the eye could see. "No," Sarah whispered, her despair creeping into her voice. They turned to go back, but the crack in the wall had vanished, replaced by the same fiery expanse. They were trapped, with no sign of the house or any way back. Then, echoing across the vast emptiness, came Baphomet's voice. "At last, you are home." They looked up to see Baphomet, his figure towering, as tall as the sky. His presence was overwhelming, a force that seemed to consume everything around them. In that moment, something shifted within Sarah and Michael. Their eyes turned pure black, their expressions empty, as if their very souls had been drained from them. They stood, motionless, their wills seemingly eroded by the immense power of Baphomet. The reality of their situation became painfully clear. There was no escape, no trick to unravel. They had been drawn into a realm far beyond their understanding, a realm where Baphomet reigned supreme. As they stood there, under the gaze of the deity, a chilling realization settled in their hearts. Their journey, their struggles, their hope for escape, all had been futile. They were now a part of Baphomet's world, a world where their old lives were but a distant memory, and their new reality was an eternal servitude under the shadow of the ancient deity. The fiery landscape around them was not just a prison, but their new, inescapable home.
Today, our story is about two power-hungry witches in the real world, using dark, occult magic to try and outwit each other in a battle of supernatural forces. But in the end, which one will win? Vincent Hawthorne's journey into the world of business began in the shadows of desperation. Born into poverty, he struggled to make ends meet in a city that showed no mercy to the downtrodden. Fate, however, had a different plan for Vincent. As he toiled away in a humble, mundane job that barely paid the bills, Vincent met Isabella. Her beauty was captivating, her demeanor mysterious. Unknown to Vincent, Isabella hailed from a long line of witches, practitioners of dark arts that transcended generations. Her family's grimoires contained spells that promised power, wealth, and success. Isabella, smitten by Vincent's determination and potential, decided to weave her enchantments around him. The Dark Pact was sealed, and Vincent's rise to success began with an otherworldly acceleration. His small business flourished, expanding into realms he had only dreamed of. Investments paid off, partnerships flourished, and doors that were once closed swung wide open. Vincent attributed his success to hard work and determination, blissfully unaware of the threads of dark magic woven into the fabric of his prosperity. Isabella, always at his side, masked her machinations with love and support. She reveled in the power she drew from the ancient spells, ensuring that Vincent's ascent continued unabated. The city, oblivious to the unnatural force propelling Vincent forward, admires his meteoric rise. Yet, with every success, Agatha, a witch of the same occult lineage, felt her own powers wane. The stolen magic cast a shadow over her abilities, leaving her desperate and resentful. Determined to reclaim what she believed was rightfully hers, Agatha began her investigation into the source of Vincent's prosperity. Agatha's dimly lit apartment, cluttered with ancient tomes and mystical artifacts, served as her sanctuary. Frustration etched lines on her face as she tried spell after spell, each one met with failure. The once potent witch found herself shackled by an unseen force, her magical endeavors crumbling like ancient parchment. Her scrying mirror flickered as she attempted to peer into the future, seeking a glimpse of the success that eluded her. However, the visions were clouded, obscured by a malevolent force that seemed to mock her with every failed attempt. Agatha's desperation grew, and in quiet hours of the night, she consulted the grimoires passed down through her family. The ancient pages whispered of a connection between power and sacrifice, a sinister dance that she could not ignore. Determined to understand the source of her downfall, Agatha delved deeper into the arcane texts. It was during a sleepless night that the truth revealed itself. The words on the yellow pages spoke of an intertwining of destinies, a magical symbiosis that connected Isabella and Vincent. Agatha's heart sank as she realized that Isabella's enchantments were not only fueling Vincent's success, but also acting as a shield, deflecting and nullifying any magic attempt to rival her influence. The revelation struck Agatha like a physical blow. The magic she should have inherited, the birthright that should have made her formidable, was being stifled by Isabella's dark arts. A surge of anger and determination coursed through her veins. Agatha knew she had to confront Isabella, to break the enchantments that bound her magic and reclaim the power that was rightfully hers. Agatha's determination to unravel the dark enchantments led her down a treacherous path. With her newfound knowledge of the magical link between Isabella and Vincent, Agatha devised a plan to get closer to the unsuspecting businessman. She frequented the same social circles, attending events where Vincent was a shining star, his success illuminating the room. Isabella, attuned to the ebb and flow of dark magic, sensed a disturbance. A flicker in the ethereal energy set off alarms in her mind. Unbeknownst to Agatha, Isabella's instinct, honed by years of occult practice, warned her of an intruder in the carefully constructed world. Agatha, with a beguiling charm born of desperation, began to weave her own web around Vincent. She strategically placed herself in his path, engaging in conversation that danced on the edge of flirtation. Vincent, oblivious to the arcane dance unfolding around him, found Agatha's company enchanting. Isabella, however, was not one to be trifled with. Sensing the threat to the delicate balance of her enchantments, she decided to confront Agatha. In a clandestine meeting beneath the boughs of an ancient tree, Isabella attempted to hex her rival. Dark incantations whispered through the night air, but to Isabella's dismay, the hex recoiled, its power dissolving into the shadows. Agatha, shrouded in an unseen shield of protection, stood defiant against the assault. Isabella's eyes widened with realization, a mixture of fear and recognition flickering across her face. The fouled hex was a revelation. Agatha was not a mere interloper. She too was a wielder of dark magic. The confrontation left Isabella seething with anger and paranoia. Her suspicions of Agatha's true nature fueled a growing darkness within her. Unbeknownst to Vincent, the delicate threads of the enchantment were fraying, and the once seamlessly tapestry of prosperity began to show signs of unraveling. As Agatha continued her intricate dance with Vincent, she delved further into the shadows. The stage was set for a confrontation that would decide the fate of the intertwined destinies and reveal the true extent of the dark powers at play. Vincent's nights took a sinister turn as a looming shadow began to stalk his every move. Unseen eyes observed him from the darkness, and the air seemed charged with an otherworldly tension. Isabella, perceptive to the shifts in magical currents, sensed the presence but couldn't pinpoint its origin. Agatha, driven by desperation and the need for distraction, had summoned a minor demon in the form of a sleek black panther. The creature, a manifestation of Agatha's growing prowess in the dark arts, prowled through the shadows, its amber eyes fixated on Vincent. Vincent, unaware of the supernatural forces closing in around him, started to feel the weight of an unseen gaze. On the periphery of his vision, he caught glimpses of a feline silhouette, its form fluid and elusive. The night air grew thick with the creature's presence, and Vincent's senses heightened, attuned to the primal instincts that warned of an imminent threat. On a moonlit evening, as Vincent traversed a dimly lit alley, the panther materialized from the inky blackness. Its growls reverberated through the stillness, a chilling symphony of menace. Vincent's heart raced as he turned to confront the creature, his eyes widening in horror. The panther lunged with supernatural speed, claws unsheathed and fangs bared. Vincent fought back with a primal instinct, his survival instincts kicking in. In the moonlit struggle, the air crackled with arcane energy. The panther, a manifestation of Agatha's conjured malevolence, left its mark on Vincent's flesh. A searing pain tore through him as claws racked across his skin, leaving behind a scar that pulsed with dark energy. The creature, having delivered its message, vanished into the shadows as swiftly as it appeared. Vincent, disorientated and bleeding, stumbled back into the pool of the dim streetlight. He clutched the fresh wound, his mind swirling with confusion. The encounter left him haunted by the primal intensity of the attack and the unearthly growls that echoed in the depths of his consciousness. As Vincent grappled with the aftermath, Isabella sensed the disturbance, but remained ignorant of Agatha's involvement. The scar, an emblem of the unseen forces at play, marked the beginning of a descent into a realm where shadows held secrets. Now we're going to have a short scare break while you ease your nerves. So while you're waiting, don't forget, if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and stab that subscribe button right now. As doing so, you'll really help the professor spread his shadow of evil. Now, let's get back to the story. Isabella's fury burned like a raging inferno as she surveyed the scar that marked Vincent's skin. The whispers of the arcane winds carried the scent of Agatha's magic, and in that moment of revelation, Isabella's eyes narrowed with a mixture of anger and determination. The ancient grimoire in Isabella's possession crackled with power as she traced her fingers over its weathered pages. Her lips moved in a silent incantation, summoning a force to match the dark panther that had terrorized Vincent. Isabella's conjuration manifested, A shadowy figure unfolded into a magnificent dark eagle, its wings stretching wide with ethereal grace. The creature's eyes gleamed with a malevolence that mirrored its mistress's rage. Deadly talons flexed in anticipation as the dark eagle fixed its gaze on Isabella. A wicked smile played across Isabella's lips as she whispered, "Let's see how she likes this." The dark eagle took flight, its wings slicing through the night air as it soared towards Agatha's realm. Isabella's magic guided the creature with deadly precision, an avian spectre sent to retaliate against the intruder who dared to threaten her carefully crafted enchantments. In the shadows, Agatha felt the shift in the magical currents. A sense of foreboding gripped her as the air crackled with dark energy. Unbeknownst to her, the dark eagle closed in, its form undetectable to mortal eyes as it descended upon Agatha's sanctuary. The first sign of the impending danger was the haunting screech that pierced the stillness of Agatha's ritual chamber. She turned in time to witness a dark eagle materialize from the shadows, its talons poised to strike. Panic flashed in Agatha's eyes as she realized the retribution Isabella had unleashed. The ensuing battle between the summoned creatures unfolded with supernatural intensity. The dark eagle clashed with the shadowy panther, a collision of arcane forces that reverberated through the ethereal plane. Agatha, caught in the crossfire, struggled to maintain her control over her creation. As feathers and fur entwined in a dance of otherworldly combat, the moon cast an eerie glow over the mystical battlefield. The clash of summoned beings marked a turning point in the occult war between Isabella and Agatha, a dark symphony playing out against the backdrop of a world where magic and malice converged into a deadly dance. The clash between the summoned demons raged on, a tumultuous battle that echoed through the mystical plane. Agatha, caught in the crossfire, felt the drain of her magical reserves intensify. The panther and eagle, locked in the deadly dance, began to cancel each other out, leaving behind a void of depleted energy. Agatha, her strength waning, stumbled back from the unfolding chaos. Her breaths came in ragged gasps as she realized that the confrontation had become a perilous gamble, threatening to consume the very essence of her magical abilities. In a moment of desperation, Agatha's eyes fell upon an ancient set of runes resting on her ritual altar. The symbols, imbued with potent magic, represented a last-ditch effort to tip the scales in her favor. A plan formed in her mind. If a minor demon couldn't do the trick, it was time to unleash a major one. With trembling hands, Agatha inscribed a set of intricate runes onto a parchment, channeling the last dregs of her magical energy into their symbols. Her plan was audacious yet necessary. She had to slip the enchanted parchment to either Vincent or Isabella, and in doing so, unleash a force that would tip the balance in her favor. However, Isabella, ever vigilant, sensed the shift in Agatha's intentions. Isabella's intuition whispered a warning. She approached Vincent with a grave expression, cautioning him against accepting anything from anyone, especially in these times of turbulence. "Whatever happens in these turbulent times, Vincent, you must not accept anything from anyone, not money, not checks. If you drop something, do not accept it back. You must not take anything from anybody." Vincent, although bewildered by Isabella's sudden solemnity, heeded her advice. The warning planted a seed of suspicion in his mind, and he became hyper-aware of his surroundings. Agatha, weakened and desperate, watched her plan unravel as Vincent, guided by Isabella's caution, refused the parchment offered by a seemingly innocent passerby after they knocked a set of books out of his hand, picked them up, and offered to give them back. He walked off, leaving the books on the floor. The runes, potential game-changer, remained untouched and inert. Frustration and fatigue etched deep lines on Agatha's face as her gamble crumbled before her eyes. The drain on her magical reserves intensified, leaving her vulnerable and exposed. The once formidable witch, now weakened and depleted, faced the consequences of her audacious ploy as the battle of the occult between her and Isabella continued. The battle had taken its toll on both Isabella and Agatha. Weakened and drained from the relentless clashes of summoned demons, the two witches stood at the precipice of a final confrontation. Isabella, cunning and strategic, decided it was time to end the game. With an air of feigned vulnerability, Isabella reached out to Agatha, proposing a truce. She suggested a meeting under the guise that both were too weakened by the mystical warfare to continue their battle. In a clandestine gathering in the heart of the city, Isabella and Agatha faced off, their eyes filled with exhaustion and a lingering sense of distrust. "I propose a truce," Isabella declared, her voice carrying the weariness of a battle-weary sorceress. "We are both on the brink of losing everything. It's time to end this." Agatha, swayed by the fatigue that gripped her, considered Isabella's words. The offer of a truce, combined with the promise of a proportion of the wealth that had eluded her for so long, proved too tempting to resist. After an intense exchange, Agatha reluctantly agreed to the terms. Isabella, with a calculating smile, handed Agatha a check for $5 million. "Consider it compensation for the troubles," she said, her voice carrying a note of deceptive sweetness. "And of course, I'll remove the spells hindering your success, a fair exchange for a truce." Basking in her apparent victory, Agatha left the meeting with a sense of triumph. The wealth promised to her was now within reach, and the prospect of newfound success seemed tantalizingly close. However, as Agatha sat in the dim glow of her ritual chamber examining the check, a sinking realization gripped her. Small, runic symbols, barely visible to the naked eye, adorned the corners of the paper. Panic surged through her as she recognized the ancient runes, the very symbols she had inscribed onto the parchment in her failed attempt to unleash a major demon. The room darkened, and the air grew heavy with an ominous energy. Agatha's heart raced as a portal to the netherworld opened before her. The demon she had sought to unleash against Isabella emerged, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. "You attempted to deceive me," the demon hissed, in a voice a guttural symphony of malice. "Now I've come to claim what is mine." Agatha, paralyzed by fear and regret, watched helplessly as the demon's twisted grin widened. The truth had been an elaborate ruse, a web of deception woven by Isabella to turn Agatha's own ambitions against her. The demon, now freed from the confines of his ethereal prison, prepared to exact its revenge. As the portal closed behind the vengeful entity, Agatha's chamber now sat empty as she too was pulled through the portal. The unraveling web of dark forces had reached its zenith, ensnaring all who dared to manipulate its threads. In the end, there could only ever be one winner. Months passed, and the cityscape glittered with the triumph of Vincent Hawthorne and Isabella. The once unseen threads of dark magic that had propelled Vincent's rise to success were now seamlessly woven into the fabric of their opulent lives. The scar on Vincent's skin had become a distant memory, a testament to the unseen battles fought in the shadows. Vincent and Isabella, more successful and prosperous than ever, stood together on the terrace of their new penthouse. The city sprawled beneath them, its lights a testament to the heights they had reached. Isabella's eyes sparkled with a satisfaction that transcended the mundane, and Vincent's gaze held a knowing appreciation for the enchantment that had shaped his destiny. Isabella turned to Vincent, a smile playing on her lips. "I told you I'd do anything for you, Vincent." Vincent, his gratitude evident, pulled Isabella into a tender embrace. The couple stood in the glow of their triumph, wrapped in the blissful love that had weathered the storms of the occult. The enchantments that had once been a source of hidden power were now a harmonious part of their shared success. The unraveling web had been rewoven into a tapestry of prosperity, and the darkness that had lurked in the shadows was now a distant echo. And if you're still looking to fulfill your thirst for more horror, don't forget to check out this next video. Unless, of course, you're frozen with fear already.